Hello colleagues, this is John Herrera, President of MuniTemps and Municipal Staffing Solutions with today's City Speak blog and podcast with the title, How do we go about promoting employees to positions that they will succeed in? Or conversely, how to avoid promoting employees to positions for which they are not going to succeed in, positions that perhaps are not qualified in. And before I get into this rather sensitive subject, because we've never faced so much shortage of qualified employees who are ambitious to exert themselves to climb the corporate ladder in our organizations as never before. I think those of us, we have different generations, right? We have the baby boomers, the Gen X, the millennials, the Gen Z, and so forth. I forget all the generations, but we have everything from baby boomers, Gen X, millennial, Gen Y, and everybody is a little different. So I can only speak from my perspective as a baby boomer. I'm at the tail end of the baby boomer generation, which goes to those who were born up to 1964. But, back in the day, you didn't have to encourage us, incentivize us, pay us to move up in the organization, to assume more responsibility. But before I get into this, I wanted to give you a little background. You've heard of the F-35, the Navy fighter jet, the F-35. The average age for Navy fighter pilots, it's over 40 years old. Think about it. They all have to get a bachelor's degree. They have years of training and very intense training at that. Why is that? Why are Navy fighter pilots, why do they have to have such intense training? Why do they have to have there's a requirement. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, you cannot be a Navy fighter pilot. But the reason is not just because of the obvious, which is people's lives, freedom, national defense is at stake. It's because, think about it, these little Hummers that they're flying around up there, they have a price tag of about $80 million. $80 million. So the Navy figures that not just anybody is going to be allowed to fly one of these Navy jets, these fighter jets, these F-35s. $80 million is a lot of money. So there are some young people that are being put into these positions, but they're highly qualified. They're college educated, they're trained, and they put through these very intense preparation before they hand them this F-35 to fly. That's on the surface, that's the extent of what I know about it. I'm not a Navy expert or anything like that. But I found it interesting because I see a parallel about those of us then who are working in organizations today, whether that's in business or government or nonprofit. We are running organizations that have a value of $80 million or more. Just look at like in the case that I work in city government, look at the government-wide financial statement, the statement of net position, and look at the total value, total assets of the organization. They're over $80 million, over $100 million, even the smallest city. By the way, some 90% of city organizations across the United States, there's over 100,000 small cities and towns that are incorporated with a separate governing body and so forth, but most of them are small 10, 12, 15,000 population cities. But who are flying those jets? What kind of preparation are they being given? This video is not about the education, college or no college. That's a City Speak blog and podcast for a different day. What I'm talking about today is understanding how we promote people. Sometimes we are promoting people to a level of their incompetence, where they really can't do that job. Or if we're to provide them more training, then they could do that job. But that's something to think about. You know, are we, are we promoting people to a position that they themselves are pursuing, or are we just giving it to them? Do we sit there and talk to employees about high-level kinds of financial concepts and transactions and so forth when they don't have the experience, the education, or the background to understand them? We want them to, and we think that by osmosis they're going to absorb all this information. I suppose to a certain extent that's true, but as you promote people, you need to train them. If they don't have the formal university or college education, then you're going to need to promote them. And more, that's something that we're having to do. I see it myself. I'm a recruiter as well as a CFO and a company president. But I see it. We've never had the shortage of individuals who are all vying for positions to move up the corporate ladder, at least not in city government or local government where I work. And it's just different. We used to compete for jobs. I started working in 1990 in city government, but I already had 10 years of experience in the private sector before that. But we wanted to move up. We didn't need anybody to ask us, wouldn't you like to move up to this higher level position, John? No, nobody told me that. I had to go to night school to get my master's degree. I had to go to night school to go and network with other CFOs and people that were in higher level positions, which I was after. We didn't have to be paid more. We didn't have to be paid out of class pay. I can tell you during my 32 years of experience working in city government, I can't tell you how many people that if you ask them to do a task that's outside of what their job description is, because they don't believe it's other duties as assigned, but they would say, no, you got to give me 5% out of class pay. And that's the extent of their investment in their job, is they just want to get paid 5%. So for a few $100, they got paid that few $100, but they're missing out on earning millions of dollars of additional income from that training. And a lot of us, like I said, us baby boomers especially, we did whatever we were told. There was no job that was too small or too large for us. We wanted to learn, right? When I was in college and I took advantage of an internship, you know how much I got paid? Zero. As a matter of fact, I had to pay them with free services because internships were not paid back in the day. You weren't working to get paid from an internship because you were getting knowledge and experience any more than when we were in college. We put in 3,000 hours of education over the 4 or 5 years that we were in college. We didn't need to get paid. We were always willing to learn more because we knew that the payback was going to be in the future. You all have heard of future value, present value, and how we calculate that. Anyhow, so in terms of looking at the issue then is that there are organizations that move people up to positions that they cannot handle. They don't train them as much. And that's happening a lot out of necessity. I get it. There's just not enough people that are willing to apply for these jobs, and you go through several rounds of trying to recruit people and you can't find them. So there are alternatives that you need to consider. And the alternatives are you can stop promoting employees to positions that they aren't qualified for. You can invest in their training, or you can just look at bringing in people from the outside and not look at just promoting from within. But in the end, there's a lot of politics associated with this, and I get it, but there's not a reason to ever bring in folks who are not competent. They're not prepared. They don't have the background to be able to do that position. And that's especially important in finance, accounting, engineering, the technical areas. In the other areas of management and so forth, experience is more important than college. I believe that. And I'll do another subject later on that. But that's all for now. John Herrera with MuniTemps and the City Speak blog and podcast. Thank you for sticking for the first 10-minute part. Now, stick around for the longer version. This is John Herrera. Thanks for being with me today. Have a great day. Okay, for those of you that are staying for the extended version, let me just go into a little bit more details. As I said, Nacho Libre. Let's get down to the nitty gritty, right? The nitty gritty. As I said, the Navy does not give just anybody an F-35 pilot, a plane, $80 million, right? $80 million fighter jet. Say, go fly it, right? You look like a nice guy. You're a friend of the captain or whatever, right? No, there's no way. I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of nepotism and other things that go on, but in general, it's based on who is best prepared. And so just like the Navy does not let just anybody without the education experience fly these $80 million planes, the same is true should be true in our organizations, which are $100 million plus organizations. And especially in the area of finance and accounting and wherever you have technical requirements, you got to insist on the education. And if they don't have the education, send them back to school. Pay for them to go to school. Facilitate it. Make it happen. It's a short-term investment. Of course, there's a risk because they can go work somewhere else. They can take their education somewhere else. That was always the reason why, in my day, we went to school on our own time, because the organization knew, and I worked in city government, the organization knew that when you found a better job, you were going to move on. So why is it that certain organizations then promote people to the level of incompetence of that individual? That's because they sometimes don't think of it. They need to fill this position. They have somebody here that knows a little bit about the subject, so they move them in there. And again, I'm not talking about city management or certain areas that don't need the technical finance, accounting, the science. I'm not talking about those areas. That you can't do. You're not going to make a multi-million-dollar financial error, right? I'm talking really specifically in finance, accounting, and engineering, right? People who are designing bridges or managing the projects related to bridges and so forth. Anytime you have somebody with I'm a licensed accountant. I'm a certified public accountant. So if I make certain mistakes and I'm out there consulting on a consulting basis with a client and I make a serious mistake, I could lose my license. The client is able to go back to the California Board of Accountancy and put in a claim against me. I have an insurance policy and so forth. But most other positions that are not licensed positions, the employees can just continue to do their work and nobody really knows, because there's not the same level of professional standard. If you're a lawyer, if you want to engage in the practice of law, you need to have a law license, right? You need to be a lawyer licensed by the California Bar, right, Association. If you're an engineer, you have to have a professional engineer, a PE license. And there are others, the water operators, the wastewater operators. Theirs is not a license; it's more like a credential, a designation. But they're in such high demand that if you get them trained and educated, there's a chance that if you don't pay them the same or provide them the great education opportunities and good management and so forth, they'll go somewhere else. They'll take that education somewhere else. So I guess I asked the question, how do we solve this problem? How do we deal with promoting employees to positions that they will succeed in? Well, I always use something called the IBAR, I-B-A-R. It's a tool that I invented when I was working in city government on how to be able to come up with a way to logically analyze a situation and then move forward. So I'll describe my IBAR today regarding this topic that we're talking today about, promoting employees who are qualified to succeed in their positions. So I, in my IBAR management decision model, I stands for identifying the issue, B is background, A is alternatives, identifying the alternatives, R is recommendation. Any analysis that you engage in as a manager, if you don't have a recommendation, it's pretty meaningless. And I've seen challenges with the governing body, the city council, whoever, where the department director will make a presentation, and in the recommendation section of the staff report, instead of giving a recommendation to the council, which is being done through the city manager, but instead of giving a recommendation, what they do is they ask for direction. Well, to me, that's pretty worthless, and it's lacking in backbone, professional backbone to give a recommendation. That's why we get paid the big bucks as executive management in local government and other organizations. You have to make a recommendation. So anyhow, let me go to this I-bar analysis on dealing with the topic of promoting employees to positions that they will succeed in. So let me redefine the issue. The issue is that an organization promotes employees to positions for which they are not qualified to perform. This results in huge errors like possible loss of millions of dollars of public funding, huge lawsuits, or a lack of appreciation from the governing body, the council, the community. And so there's a lack of education and training for employees that we obviously need to move up to position of responsibilities, because there's such a shortage of people out there that have the skill set and the experience. So the issue then again, as we identified, is promoting employees to positions that they're not qualified for. The background, let me give you a little background. Some organizations, they find themselves having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in consulting fees to clean up the errors, the mistakes that are made by certain people that are in these positions for which they're not qualified. So you hand a finance department to a CFO in an organization, and over time, you can be in a situation where you're going to lose millions of dollars. So you have to hire a higher cost consultant to come in and to clean up the mess that was left behind. You've heard of the Peter Principle, right? Peter Principle states that every employee tends to rise to their level of incompetence. So in simple terms, promoting people to positions that they're not qualified for makes them incompetent by definition. Now, we still want to promote people, obviously, but the thing is that we need to do it through education and training, and that costs money. So as part of this section of the I-bar, the background, think in terms of moving employees up the organization, or let's put it sideways. Think of a piano, right? The lower keys here and the higher keys here. Moving employees along to the higher responsibilities requires training and education. And we really have no way out from investing in their training and education. So I guess the organizations that continue to do this don't realize that somebody's going to have to pay for these decisions of promoting people who are not qualified. And there's better ways of being able to do that. So we know that politics and especially in government organizations, right, where even though we have a civil service system, which means that all of the decisions are based on a merit system, there is still a lot of decisions that are made on for political reasons, and we certainly hope that that's not happening at the organizations we're working at. That's why we have civil service. I mean, I think it was in 130 years ago, the civil service system was established. So there was a separation between the political realm and the professional realm. Even city government, city management, ICMA deals with professional public management. In the finance office, professional financial management, and all the departments in human resources, community development, library services, public works, and so forth. It's all critical that you have to have professionally trained employees to take these positions, especially if they move up into positions of responsibility. So we talked about the issue, promoting employees to positions they're not qualified for without training, and we provided the background, a little bit of background. Let's talk about the alternatives now. And I identified three. So what are the alternatives to solve the issues of incompetent employees sitting in positions of weighty responsibilities, right? Where millions of dollars are at stake and millions of dollars of lawsuits potentially at stake. So just like the Navy fighter pilot that is entrusted with an $80 million F-35 jet, they have to have the qualifications and they have to have the training. and they have to have the experience. As I said, you don't have that many young guys fighting these flying these F-35 jets. These guys are averages 40 to 45 years old. They're more mature guys that are flying these jets. So the same thing should be in management. Don't be quick to move people up unless they're exceptional, they have the experience, and certainly they personally want it. I made the mistake for a long time in my company at Munitemps, where I would sit there and try to encourage somebody, and I spend there talking a long time about why they should move up, when the fact is they didn't want to move up. They were like, no, I'm happy doing accounts payable or accounts receivable or just the basic accounting, whatever it was that the task was. But I was so excited and trying to tell them, this is how excited I am about seeing you, go outside your comfort zone. But there's people that don't want that. I mean, especially some of the younger people today. I was at a 24-hour fitness about a month ago, and I was going there by the men's gym to go get dressed. And there was a couple guys, 25, 28 years old, and one of them was saying, you know what, I don't know what's up with my boss, man. I mean, I just want to do my job. I mean, he wants me to do sales. He wants me to train other people. He wants me to assume additional responsibilities. Hey, man, I don't want to be responsible for what anybody does. I just want to do my job. And these are guys that are working in retail, maybe at McDonald's and Walmart and those kinds of jobs that are very low-paying jobs. If you want to make more money, you got to be willing to get yourself out there and get yourself trained and risk a little bit of your personal time on the phone or the playing games or doing social activities. You have to have sacrifices. If you're not willing to sacrifice a little bit today, what does your future have to give you back in terms of return on your time? Very little. And that's why I encourage education and training and just getting involved. But don't just go there and sit there in a meeting. You have to participate. You have to get involved. Some people are not going to like what you say. There are some folks that don't want to hear anything that doesn't agree with them. But that's few and far between. More and more people today. I had the opportunity to do a team building session last week, and it was pretty awesome. The people I work with are receptive. They let us express ourselves. It doesn't mean that they have to accept what we say. They're the boss, right? We're just offering feedback. But the fact that we're allowed to give feedback, that's very satisfactory. The fact that they have the maturity to hear people who have a difference of opinion. So here's in thinking about the Navy fighter jets, the Navy pilots that fight these, that fly these F-35 fighter jets. Do you know that there are only 3 pilots a year who are approved out of 1,000 candidates for that job? Yeah, and the Navy's not bringing that down. They don't want to have one of these jets, crashed and burned, or some other greater issue that could happen. No, what they say no. And you have to be a college grad, and you have to have at least a 3.87 average, 3.87 GPA, and intense training. And there's no sugarcoating that. Being a Navy fighter pilot, it's serious business. And I think we should try to uphold high standards in our organizations as high as possible. It's never going to be obviously at the standard of a Navy fighter pilot, but it can be higher than it is right now. I like what one of my assistant city managers that I work with, she said, we can do better. We can do better. I love that. We can do better. And that's all it is, just doing better. And that takes effort and that takes work. So I commend the city manager and I love working with her. So here, let's get into the alternatives. We talked about the issue, promoting people to positions they're not qualified for. Gave some background. Now let's identify the alternatives. Number 1, it's easy. Stop promoting people to positions for which they're not qualified for, educationally and experience. Just stop it, quit it. Alternative number 2, invest in training your in-house staff if you can't recruit from the outside. Now I know that there's huge benefits from recruiting people from the outside, but that causes problems. So organizations try to recruit from within if possible, but you can't recruit from within if they're not qualified. So have a training program. Look at bringing people in. Muni Temps comes into organizations, and we do train people in finance and administration and HR and pretty much every department, because we have folks on our team who are a lot of retired people who come back and work with us and help us to provide training to different municipal organizations, because we work with municipalities. So again, there are politics obviously involved in this, but provide in-house training, meaningful training, and show your commitment. One city that I'm working with actually has a mentor program where they have several employees that they're trying to move up, and they're mentoring them. Well, that's a great thing. And if they can add technical training, and in finance and accounting, that requires rigorous training. In any of the technical areas, it requires rigorous training. And then alternative number 3 that I identified is to hire leaders who can help you in your organization to recruit the best and the brightest. Remember that term? We don't use it much anymore, but 30, 40, 50 years ago, we always talked about recruiting the best and the brightest. And that just doesn't happen anymore. Today it's recruiting whoever is best at kissing up, whoever is best at making friends with the board of directors, or whoever knows this person or that person. There's also been that saying for a long time, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, that's up to a point. You still got to be qualified. You still have to have the background, education, and experience to be able to step up to that position. But you might say, well, my organization is located way out here in Timbuktu. Who's going to come out here? Well, guess what? If FedEx and Amazon could get to Timbuktu, and by the way, they're multi-billion-dollar corporations, but if FedEx and Amazon can deliver to your little town in Timbuktu, a good recruiting program can also deliver a good candidate to your Timbuktu out-of-the-way community. So I just say that everything is available at the right price. Now, if you're saying, well, we can't afford that. Okay, we can't afford that. Okay, I get it. Maybe you cannot afford to hire a certain position to come out with the level of experience that you're looking for. But there are alternatives, like training that person and putting them through rigorous training. Do not ever sacrifice on quality, because there's a saying in Spanish, lo barato sale caro, means that what you pay that's cheap ends up costing you a lot more money, more expensive. So I believe in investing in people, and if you can't train, they're not somebody who's trainable, because they don't have the desire to pursue the position. Remember what I said earlier? Is it you that's promoting this person, or are they anxiously saying, oh, please, John, move me up to this position, give me a chance, man, I can do it? Or is it you trying to promote them because you want to see that position filled? Ask yourself that question as well. My recommendation, embrace all 3. So stop promoting people who are not qualified. Don't put them and make them incompetent by putting them in positions they don't have the academics or training or experience for. Number 2, invest in a good in-house training program so that you can train your employees, and that costs money, but it's much less expensive than option 3, which is hire from the outside. Recruit people, you have to pay whatever the market price is for that position to have them go there. And like I said, if FedEx and Amazon can deliver to your little town in the middle of nowhere, a good recruiting program can also deliver an employee to that area there. And there's more than one way to accomplish this. So thank you for listening in to me, listening to City Speak today, and listen to me talk about this sensitive subject about promoting people to positions that they're not qualified for. Just trying to help and create dialogue. I talk about things that people don't usually talk about. So I hope you can appreciate it for the academic value of having this conversation. All for now, John Herrera with Muni Temps, Municipal Staffing Solutions, and the City Speak blog and podcast. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you on the next one. Please comment below. Your comments mean a lot to me. Thank you. Bye-bye.